Okay, so that process will sleep for a bit, and then it will come back and it will mark, according to our criteria, all of the animals that don't meet that criteria, and it will butcher them from oldest adults backwards and from youngest kids forward, so that it preserves the transition from kids to adults as much as possible, and so that the adult lifespan is prolonged for your animals as much as possible. That way you're always butchering the oldest and closest to being dead. I don't know if Auto Butcher checks for sexual orientation. It checks gender. It won't check to see whether your animals are gay or not, unfortunately. Alright, our archery targets are up now, so let's get this going. Alright, now we should start to see some of our hunters on their spare time come by from time to time and fire a few bolts into the targets here. So I'll check back in on Auto Butcher now that I see things are being butchered, and you can see that it's decided we have too many male dogs, so it's going to get rid of those. And likewise, it's still got to get rid of our goats and llamas and reindeer, because we don't really need as many different types of animals as we have. We're going to kind of keep it to a minimum number of animals, and we'll develop a fairly robust set of those. And the slaughter goes on. Da-da-dump, da-dump, squish. Our first batch of P-chicks is available, so we should probably rearing cage those, since we went through all the effort to build a rearing cage. Let's check in to make sure that the um, eggs that are available are fertilized and forbidden. So those aren't fertilized, we don't care. Those aren't fertilized, we don't care. There's none there. Those aren't fertilized, we don't care. Those aren't fertilized, we don't care. Okay, so nobody's sitting on any eggs at the moment. That's perfect. We can come storming in and cage up all the pull or the pea chicks and be done with it. And we'll should get somebody coming along here to put a cage in place and pack up the. There's the cage, and as soon as that's up, there we go. Now we'll box up all the chicks. And some folks will come along to jam a bunch of birds into cages here momentarily. If it does, that's fantastic. Getting rid of the animals that won't reproduce would be ideal. I'm not too worried about it if it doesn't. I'm making sure to keep enough males on hand that even if one or two slips through, it's not going to be a big deal. So now we have a fair amount of meat on hand, and we should be able to start cranking out, if we haven't already, plenty of prepared meals. So, these are all the prepared meals are. We'll split those out. So you can see here, Dwarven Wine Roast. We'll view that one item, for example, and that's made from, let's see, what I got to get the description. Goose tallow, dwarven beer, dwarven ale, and dwarven wine. So this is fat and alcohol cooked up as a roast. Not sure how it works, but alright, sure, why not? Okay, and our first tavern is up and running, or will be. So we'll stash some goblets and some drinks in the tavern, and then we'll get a tavern keeper assigned. Yep, we're using Phoebus, that's correct. I was messing around with another one earlier, and I couldn't hack it. This is nice and visually distinct without being too busy. So earlier I promised beekeeping, so here's what I'm thinking we'll do for our capstone project, because we're into our last 8 hours at this point now. We've been doing this for just a hair over 16. We're going to go down to the forges. We're going to set up our obsidian caster that we started working on. See if that's ready yet. No, but we're getting there. Okay, that's cool. We'll get all of our obsidian caster built. We'll start casting obsidian blocks, obsidian stones, and then making obsidian blocks from those. We will build ourselves an obsidian tower, and we will do our beekeeping on the obsidian tower. Up away from the goblins. So the middle floor is empty space. The top floor will hold water, the middle floor is empty space, and the bottom floor, when it's finished, will be the tray where the lava will sit for our obsidian caster. Okay, so now we have strawberries. We'll start to get strawberry seeds. That'll give us the ability to grow strawberry plants. Yeah, at some point this will go up on YouTube. Obviously, I record all these locally, so worst case, I can post them up if I have to, even if Twitch has lost them for whatever reason. So none of it will get lost. Eventually, it will get out to YouTube, but chances are good, guys. I'm probably not going to do it right as soon as I hop offline. I'm probably going to go put my face down on a pillow somewhere. Unfortunately for Tamad has showed up in the middle of our caverns, and they are nicely walled off, so he's not getting in. It's been fun, man. Kick back, chill, enjoy the caverns, say hello to the troglodytes. Okay, let's get some live production running. No, that's not workflow. That's the default vanilla game. Welcome to version 43. The vanilla game now has workflow-like conditions. I discussed some of the differences briefly previously. Workflow would constantly run in the background, and so it would constantly be monitoring your stock. This does not. It only checks once every game day, or once every game month, or once every game season, however you have it set up. But it won't check it constantly. And so you can't quite replicate the sort of constantly floating inventory that you would get with Workflow. Because this one is orientated a little more towards the dwarves themselves and not so much on the external monitoring that Workflow was doing. So the way this would work is, let's say I have a job and it creates 10 of an item, and it checks daily to see whether there are 10 of them or not, and if there are not at least 10, it makes 10 more. So if there were 9 of these at the start of the day, it would check off and go, yep, need to make 10 more, and so it would kick the work order off into start mode, and at that point it would queue 10 of these jobs before it would finish. Now if it finished at the end of the day, say a few hours before the end of the day, and along the way somebody has picked up and used all of the items that we had in the stockpile, plus all of the ones we created, so that there are now none anywhere at all, the job will not immediately then turn around and kick off again just because the stockpiles are empty. It will wait till the next game day to check to see whether the inventory conditions are met again. So it only checks on those periods, whereas Workflow would have immediately detected you were below the stock level and immediately kicked the job off again. This doesn't do it that way. This will actually do it every game day. It's basically like at the start of the day, somebody wakes up and they go look at the inventory. Does it match? No. Okay, then we have to queue this job up today. And that's how it's working. I suspect that I ended up with 50 crossbows because I probably did the same thing I did with bookcases, where I initially didn't have my criteria set up quite right. When I did bookcases, I had it making like 5 per day without actually having any check to see how many there were, and so we ended up with like 200 bookcases. In the case of the crossbows, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the ideal here is that I'm going to eventually give crossbows to every member of my civilization, along with a quiver and some arrows, because what they're basically going to do is, oh look, kobold, and then 20 bolts come out of nowhere, and, that dude's a porcupine. But not yet. Not really worried about it just yet. Oh, we caught another something here. Got somebody coming along to install the new cage and somebody hauling the old one away already. Awesome. So we're going to snag some wildlife occasionally with the cage traps. See, that's actually not true. With crossbows, the only thing I care about is not quality. What I care about with crossbows more than anything else is quantity. What I really care about is not how excellent any given guy's crossbow is, because most of them are not going to be able to hit the broadside of a barn. What I care about is having so many bolts in the air at any given moment that any barn in the area is going to end up dead. Now, it's true. With crossbows, because you're not bludgeoning people with them, what I really care about is pretty much just the quality, and making a few extra to get some good ones isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the reality is that I don't really care a rat's butt about the quality of the crossbows I'm handing out, that they're made out of wood. Those are my civilian crossbows. And for my proper Mercs dwarves, who are actually going to be in proper combat, wearing heavy armor and expecting to take fire back, those guys are going to be using metal crossbows in case they have to use them as hammers.
Changed my mind.
Okay, so he's got all the materials that we have to equip for him. We just have to assign his office and his dining room, and I don't think we've done that yet. Oh, well, because we're still waiting on furniture to be built. Holy cow. Such a backlog. We will never be done with all of the chests. We could have started on day one and we still would not have enough to have gotten to this point. So the auto mining you've seen me do here, this where it's coloring this green, that will allow me to mine these veins out without actually knowing where they go. Basically, I can just designate the whole area, and any vein in there that's mineable like this will come clean at some point. I believe this is going to be like sphalerite, or not sphalerite, but tetra perhaps. Yes, awesome. So tetra will give us copper, and I believe we've snagged some cassiterite somewhere else. Yeah, I mean the reality is, as far as the wooden crossbows go, they're really just a spam technique. Um, if if my civilians are actually involved in the kind of conflict that would require them to shoot more than a couple of bolts at something, they're probably going to die. Um, the fact that they carry a crossbow and maybe have hit the range a couple times is not going to save them from, a really determined predator, or they're not wearing armor. They're not trained to that level. Let's see, are we getting folks shooting over here? I'm not seeing them, are we? Wonder if that's just because I've got them too busy. the tavern is getting built.
Why do you think I can do this?
No, my military guys don't rotate to train at shooting. My military guys are melee only. My crossbow dwarves, basically, we will set them up so that they are civilians, and then we'll basically give them nothing to do, and they'll wander into the range on their own and spend all their time shooting crossbow bolts at the wall until they are experts at that point. We only have a handful of crossbow dwarves at this point. I'm not equipping all my civilians just yet. That's kind of the late game thing for me. So let's see here. Swimming is nice, but not necessarily essential. My guys should never end up in water. Dodging is something that they'll pick up by sparring. Shield use they'll get with sparring. Archery is not something I give to everyone. My melee troops are melee only. They do not have both crossbows and axes, for example. They charge into combat and cut their enemies down. They do not fight from range. The crossbow dwarves are trained specifically for that purpose. Nobody else tries to do it. Yeah, the civilians, I'll basically start drafting them into squads and giving them a uniform that basically consists of nothing but a crossbow and some ammunition. And they'll pick up their own quivers at that point. And basically their only function will basically be when they're idle. Instead of going to chat a lot of times, they'll just wander into the crossbow range and shoot some bolts off. They'll take a long time for them to gain any real skill, but, you know, anything is better than nothing at all.
Dwarf says he has an amazing idea, but will probably be useless. I claim this workshop in the name of invention!
I think that's it right there we're getting. Oh, no, that's more Tetra. Okay. Okay, so we're getting some good copper here, good silver and good copper. So we're able to make some silver warhammers now. Good. I guess technically, if you were going to make crossbows, you could make those out of silver too. I think. I have to look. If you can make those out of silver, that's not a bad choice either. Because when they're used as melee weapons, they're used like hammers. I suspect that you'd probably be better off with iron than copper, but just because both copper and iron are both heavy materials, but if you're going to use it as a hammer, copper isn't as good a hammer as iron, I don't believe.
Oh, it's
Right.
completed.
Material doesn't matter for shooting, it's just quality at that point. hatch cover. That works wonderfully because we can go to our dining room right there and build that hatch cover. Right smack in the middle of the stairwell where everyone will see it as they pass, and it will add to the room quality, so everyone will observe that beautiful hatch and get huge, impressive faction or impressive emotion bonus from it. Let's see, was there anything else we could actually build? Figurine is useless. There's a cherrywood chair and a gold chest, and I was thinking I'd save those for noble quarters, but I'm thinking we'll just stick them in here now. No, no, you cannot. Maybe in Masterwork, perhaps, but I don't know.
Spring is upon us.
Let's see if they can get those pumps built or if the ghost will screw them up. So this would be the game that basically would have inspired RimWorld. Maybe the elves will actually bring me something useful this time. Well, while we're waiting on them to arrive in the depot, I'm going to grab a soda real fast and be right back. So yes, it's safe to say that the complexity of this is substantially greater than that of RimWorld. To be fair, RimWorld has not been in development nearly as long as this game, nor is the intent of RimWorld, in my opinion, to be quite as simulationist as this game is.